This show is brought to you by the All Pro Nation Radio Network. Be sure to like and subscribe and check us out online at allpronation.com, where fans have a voice.
Hey, it's lucky episode number 13 of the Sports Greeks podcast. We got a mixed bag for you today. It's the National League and American League Western Division previews, some final thoughts of the Sports Greeks trip out to Arizona last week. We got some Michael Bennett and Jets and Suh, spurned by the Jets, has found a home. We got some Phillies, some Sixers, and even some NCAA stuff for you. So the Sports Greeks podcast is coming to you right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to what I hope to be lucky episode number 13 of the Sports Greeks podcast here. It's the last week in March. That means opening day of baseball is coming this week on Thursday. So let's get some of the other stuff out of the way first. So thanks again for downloading and listening. We're coming to you via Apple Podcast through Libsyn. We're also available on the APN Radio Network. That's the All Pro Nation Radio Network. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at BigGreek24. My email address is victorlogo13@gmail.com. The Sports Greek has a Facebook page. If you haven't already gone in and liked it, go ahead and do that for us. We also contribute to the Philly Sports Blogs. It's phillyssportsblogs.com and allpronation.com. So I'm back from Arizona. Went out to Arizona for a few days last week. Got to see 5 baseball games. We're certainly going to talk about that. We also got to talk for a couple of minutes with someone that folks in Philadelphia certainly probably remember, even though it's been a few years. But it was a great trip to Arizona. The weather was beautiful every day. We missed a big nor'easter that came through here last week. Hopefully everybody was able to dig out of that pretty quickly. But it's opening day week for baseball. So here's what we're going to do on the show today. We've got the National League and American League Western Division previews. We're going to talk a little bit about Michael Bennett of the Eagles and his recent troubles. And Jets and Suh, spurned by the Jets, has found a home as of last evening. Has some Phillies talk, some Sixers talk, and some NCAA stuff. So let's get right into it. Here, the last week in March. Opening day is Thursday. And yes, I'm going to be at Citi Field in New York to see the New York Mets home opener on Thursday. Hopefully it won't be too cold up there. Looking forward to it. I love baseball, obviously. That's the sport I love the most. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, getting up there and seeing opening day and seeing the fans up there and everything. So I'll be there. Anybody wants to say hi, that'd be great. I know the 7-line army of the Mets will be out there in full force on opening day, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it. So Michael Bennett of the Philadelphia Eagles, recently acquired from the Seattle Seahawks, already having some issues. It appears 13 months ago at the Super Bowl down in Houston, he evidently blew through security at the end of the game. His brother was playing for the Patriots, Martellus Bennett, and evidently he knocked over or pushed an elderly person in a wheelchair, paraplegic. They had the press conference last week. The police chief referred to him as being morally bankrupt, which is a little, I thought, beyond the scope of what he should have been talking about at the press conference. Last I checked, and if this really is true and this happened, it is beyond despicable. However, we live in a country where you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. So, before we start calling this guy some of the things I've seen him called on Twitter, whether it be race baiting, despicable, you have fans already calling for the Eagles to request the trade be rescinded, a number of different. Let's let the process go through its course, and let's see what actually happened. It took 13 months to actually file any charges. So I have to wonder. And again, I don't want to say that I'm for any of this stuff, but it took 13 months to file charges. I mean, are you serious? And I know that he had some issues in Las Vegas or whatnot. That he claimed he was being targeted, this, that, and the other, and they weren't really true. I know he's not the most friendly of guys. I've heard that from the media. That not the most affable guy to be around at times. And, I've heard things even from folks who've covered the Seahawks indicate a lot of those defensive players in that locker room had a very large sense of entitlement in terms of what they could and could not do. So we'll see. Bennett's Bennett's attorney yesterday said he simply didn't do it. So we'll see. Well, let's let this thing play its way out. It is what it is at this point. The Eagles certainly didn't know what was going on. The Seahawks claim they didn't know anything about this. So a lot of the onus is going to fall on Bennett in this case for not at least letting someone know that this may have happened, if he even realized what he did. And it's certainly possible all hell's breaking loose at the end of a football game like that, and he may not have realized what actually happened. That's that's really the only thing I can possibly think of. But it does bring to light a few things, and again, I don't want to trivialize the situation whatsoever. But in all honesty, why do you have a paraplegic in a wheelchair as your last line of defense for security at a Super Bowl? And again, if the person got injured and all that, I'm very sorry. It shouldn't have happened. But again, I mean, why would you put someone in that position that may not be able to really defend themselves or be able to actually stop someone like that from coming through? And and I'm sure some of it may what happened. They may have asked for his credentials. He may not have had some. I don't know. He may have just said, "My brother's on the field. Yeah, sure, whatever." And he might have just gotten ticked off and just said, "You know what? Screw you guys. I'm just going to come through here." So we'll see what happens. Now, the bigger issue, aside from the fact that these are felony charges, which we'll see how this all works out, the bigger issue is why this guy thought, for whatever reason, if he thought he did this, that it was just going to go away. And if he didn't tell anybody, which, as an employee, which is what he is, okay, at the end of the day, why he didn't say anything to the Seahawks or even the Eagles is, again, puzzling, to say the least. But, regardless of what may or may not happen through the court system, now he's got to deal with the NFL. And we know how that works. We saw it with Ezekiel Elliott last year. So, stay tuned. This could get really pretty interesting, to be honest with you. So, hopefully, Michael Bennett doesn't do any jail time. So, I don't want to see him, get thrown in jail for anything like that. But we'll see what happens with the NFL and their penalty system. Dominican Suh was found at home. The Jets had offered a contract and then pulled it back. And the statement from the Jets general manager, something like offering him a contract did not fall in line with their long-term plan, whatnot. I think what if you read between the lines there, I think it basically says that Dominican Suh is a huge pain in the ass, and we already dealt with that with Mo Wilkerson, and we're not going to do it again. So I think that's a case of what he said, what he meant to say. So I think that's exactly what it was. The Rams got him a 1 year, $14 million. Good luck. He's a great player in Detroit, underwhelming player in Miami. So let's see what he has left. You got some teams that really fortify their lines. The Eagles with getting Bennett. The Vikings certainly have done that with Sheldon Richardson, and you got the Rams now getting the Dominican Suh. So teams are in the NFC are really kind of bolstering that defensive line. So let's talk about the NCAA tournament a little bit. We have the Final Four set. So here's what we have. You've got and I want to know who had this Final Four, because I don't think it existed in anybody's bracket. And that's Loyola Chicago, the 11 seed, is in the Final Four. They're going to play the number 3 seeded Michigan, and then you've got 2 number 1s going at it later on Saturday. You've got Kansas and Villanova. So. You have a Cinderella story here in Loyola. Now, this has happened before. I think Butler was a team, or even Gonzaga. One of them got to the championship game when he was one of the worst rated, from a television standpoint, final games in the NCAA history. And that's what happens. The Cinderella stories are nice early on in the tournament. You get a 16 beating a 1 like you had this year with University of Maryland, Baltimore County. They're nice stories, and this one with Loyola is a great story. I don't want to see him in the championship game. I don't. Even I'd love to see Villanova win another championship, which I'm pretty sure they would do fairly easily if they saw Loyola in that final game. I don't want to see it. It's not. It doesn't do anything for the ratings. Doesn't do anything really to promote the sport, in my opinion. But yeah, that will be an interesting matchup. But the game of the weekend is going to be the Kansas Villanova game. 2 number 1s going at it for the right to go to the final game. And it's kind of a shame that couldn't be the final game. It's a shame that they couldn't reseed this whole thing so that either Villanova or Kansas got to play the 11 seed, and the other team got to play the 3 seed. That's the shame of this, that you're going to have you got an 11-3 matchup and a 1-1 matchup. It just shouldn't happen. They really should figure that out going forward. But Villanova certainly is poised to win their second championship in 3 years. And what a job Jay Wright's done over the years. I mean, you had the big upset back in '85 when they knocked off Georgetown. Rolly Massimino was the head coach. Did a fantastic job then. But Jay Wright's taken the Villanova team to a whole new level here, winning the title 2 years ago. Got knocked out a little earlier last year than they would have liked, and then here they are right on the cusp of getting right back in there again. So I think it's going to be an interesting weekend coming up of NCAA basketball. But yeah, there's nobody that had this Final Four. It's just not possible. It's just not there. So that's that. We'll see how it all works out. Going to some baseball, talking about the Phillies. Now, I've been very, very critical the whole Jake Arrieta thing. $30 million is what he's going to get this year. And now he's not going to pitch in the opening week. He's going to, make his first start on April 8th. And, this is what sucks when you get, guys like Scott Boras telling their clients to hold out for big mega dollars that never come. It hurts the ball club. It hurts the fans. He's going to get $30 million. He's already going to miss a start. And I think my comment when I saw that, I think I put it on Twitter, was, this guy's going to get $30 million this year. He needs to shag his ass out there and pitch, because it's nobody else's fault but his own, okay, that he took bad advice and sat out for as long as he did. And, it's bad enough the projections I've seen are very underwhelming for what he's getting paid. I think I saw somewhere in a fantasy guy, like 12 wins, a 3.7 something ERA, and a 1.26 WHIP. That's not worth $30 million. It really isn't. And I know there's some off the field stuff that he can certainly do, and I get the whole, the younger guys can learn from him and his routine, and he comes in and it knocks everybody down a spot. But I'm sorry, and Alex Cobb signed with the Orioles, 4 for $60. It's $15 a year. Lance Lynn signs a 1-year deal for $12. So why couldn't the Phillies go sign those two guys? That's $27 million. They would paid out for 2 rotation spots this year, okay, and still have $3 million left over of the 30 they're giving one guy. One guy who, again, whose numbers are sliding backwards the last 2 years, didn't even average 6 innings to start last year. And don't give me this BS that's where baseball is going, is 5-inning stuff, and then you run into the parade of pitchers. Because I'm going to tell you, in Washington, it's not happening. Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg are going a hell of a lot longer than 5 innings. Up in New York, okay, DeGrom and Syndergaard are pitching more than 5 innings to start. Clayton Kershaw in L.A., Madison Bumgarner in San Francisco, Zach Greinke in Arizona. They're not pitching 5-6 innings. Okay, you can't get the ball out of their hand in a lot of cases. And I said this before, Matt Harvey's famous for not coming out of a game in a World Series, and that was after 8. He wanted to start the 9th inning, and unfortunately, it was the beginning of the end, so to speak. But yeah, I'm not buying it. But then on the other hand, the Phillies did what I thought was an awesome thing in signing Kingery. They signed Scott Kingery to a contract, basically taking him through 2026 with the 3 club options that they have. So basically, signed to a 6-year extension, and the Phillies have a club option for years 24, 25, and 26. So not sure how they were able to pull that one off, because by all rights, and again, you don't know how he's really going to perform. But Scott Kingery has a really good chance to really outperform that contract and give the Phillies some great years at a real reduced rate. And I know that they got stung with Ryan Howard through arbitration because he became a Super 2 and hit arbitration a year before he would have otherwise, and he had some historical years in there, and that jacked up the arbitration. I think he set a record the 1 year for his arbitration money. And then Amaro, pretty much after that, they tried to work out 1-year contracts with him. And they ended up really overpaying him, and a lot of that wasn't his fault. If you looked at his average numbers every year, if the Phillies didn't pay him, somebody was going to. Same thing happened with Albert Pujols. If the Angels didn't pay him, somebody was going to. Because until he went to Los Angeles, his numbers were outstanding as well. I mean, just again, historical season averages there. So same thing happened with Ryan Howard. But the thing with Kingery, I mean, he's probably going to outperform the contract more than likely, unless he gets hurt or just isn't the player they think he is. And it seems that the Phillies are going to he's going to make the opening day roster, and it seems that he's going to play second. He's going to play some short. He's going to play some third. Who knows? Maybe he gets in there at first base once in a while. He's kind of going to be the, dare I say it, a Ben Zobrist kind of player, where he's just going to be that super sub and not really start anywhere, but guy could get 300-400 at bats just coming in and playing a few times a week. So I think that's really interesting. But yeah, the whole Arrieta thing is really, just really ticks me off. I mean, they're not getting the value for me in the contract. I don't think he's going to win the number of games or have the kind of year that you would expect of that kind of pitcher getting that kind of money. It's like you're paying him for what he's already done and not what he's about to do, and that's not smart baseball. But like I said, on the other side, the Phillies are I think getting a great value here with Kingery. So, and again, I hope I'm wrong. As a fan of the team, I hope I'm dead wrong. But I listen to sports talk radio, and you got these idiot talking heads on there. I heard one guy yesterday said the Phillies are going to win 87 games, and I'm just not going to happen. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go back through it again. But there are a lot of question marks on this ball club. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I think that they're a young team on the come, as they say. It's a bad situation. They've already lost Eichhoff for a number of weeks. They're going to lose him for, unfortunately. But, J.P. Crawford, a young shortstop, he looks exciting. Looks like he can play really good defense. They've already got Hernandez at second. Macau Franco, looks like he could rebound. He hit had a few big games in the spring. Had one 2-home-run game with 6 RBIs, a grand slam, and a 2-run shot. Odubel Herrera, if he keeps his head screwed on straight, is a real exciting player. Real exciting player, even though he likes to flip the bat on the warning track fly balls. But he's an exciting player. Aaron Altier, if he can stay healthy, proved last year that he can hit Major League pitching on a consistent basis. He plays very good defense. Rhys Hoskins we saw for 50 games, what he could do. I mean, this is a guy out in left field that you could legitimately see him hit 35, 40 home runs. He's the kind of guy that could give you the numbers of Pat Burrell, and if you really want to go back a few years, Greg Luzinski gave you out in left field in terms of power, home runs, and RBIs. And he walks a lot. That's the other thing. Hoskins has a really, really good eye at the plate. It's just the question there is how will he handle playing left field on an everyday basis. I know he got a little bit of time out there last year, but we'll see. You've got the young catcher Alfaro. Looks like the Phillies are going with Alfaro and Knapp. They released Cameron Rupp, which was exactly the right thing to do. I hope Rupp lands on his feet somewhere else. I know that Tommy Joseph also was released. The Rangers claimed him, if I'm not mistaken. And again, wish him all the best. He had a very tough – Tommy Joseph had a real tough job to do when he came up. He was replacing Ryan Howard. And both were on the roster at the time, and I thought he handled it really well. And, he came in last year, and then eventually they brought up Hoskins and kind of took his job. And he still hit 20-plus home runs. But on this ball club, unfortunately, Tommy Joseph has no place. He's a guy that only plays first base. You've already kind of got that with Carlos Santana. He's a right-handed hitter. Santana's a switch hitter. He's going to play every day. So it's just not a good fit, and I hope he gets some playing time with the Rangers. I really do. That's my rant for the Phillies for the week. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers for a moment now. They currently held the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference after a big drubbing of the Denver Nuggets on Monday night. Markelle Fultz made his first appearance in what had to be a good 60 games. I think he doled out 8 assists and had 10 points. So they're trying to get him back in the mix, the first overall pick of this past year's draft. So as the Sixers go through the playoff drive, and they're only a half a game behind the Cavs, and the Sixers have a game in hand. The Sixers have 9 games left. The Pacers, who they're technically tied with for the 4 seed right now, and the Cavs both have 8 games left. So the Sixers' next game is against the Knicks. The Cavs play the Charlotte Hornets. So, if the Sixers can overcome the Cavs, will actually move into the 3 seed. But right now, as it stands right now, they'll get home court advantage should the playoffs were to start right now. And if the Sixers have home court advantage, I think they win that first series. And I wrote an article for both PhillySportsBlogs.com and AllProNation.com that this is really just the first step in terms of the process. You had the number of years that the Sixers just didn't really put a good team on the floor, trying to get as much draft capital, as I like to call it, as possible, which netted them Embiid, Simmons, and Fultz. And now they're in the playoffs. So this is the first time in 6 years they've been in the playoffs. So this is the first step on the way. I mean, the quote unquote process. Basically you clean it out, you get the draft capital, you get superstars on your team, which in Embiid and Simmons right now they have. We'll see about Fultz. But, this is just kind of the first step on the way to winning the NBA championship, which don't think they'll do this year. But next year, year after, it's very conceivable that even if the Sixers don't win an NBA championship, they would at least make it to the finals, if not once, maybe twice over the next 2 to 3 years. There's no reason why they can't. In a short series, which is what you have in the NBA playoffs, it's very difficult to match up against Embiid and Simmons. It really is. I was at the Minnesota game, and the Sixers just tore them apart. The third quarter of that game was just ridiculous. I mean, I think they scored 40 points in the quarter, and I mean it was just ridiculous. And they sat all their starters for the last part of the third and fourth quarter, and Minnesota got back in the game. And Minnesota's not a bad ball club. They're a winning team right now. I think hold the 8th spot in the West. And even Denver, they've got a winning record as well. It's not like they're playing the dreck of the NBA here these last few games. They've won 7, 8 in a row, and they're getting hot at the right time. And if they get in there, they are in there. If they get home court advantage, they could certainly win the first series. Don't know if they would get to the Eastern Conference Finals because they're going to run into Boston or Toronto along the way. I don't think that they'd beat either one of those two in a series, but it would be interesting to find out, and it'd be interesting to see what this team with two young superstars, the dynamic duos I like to call them, can do in a short series. So I think that'll be a very interesting thing, and it's been an exciting year for Sixer basketball. I mean, since the beginning of the year, the Eagles win the Super Bowl. The Sixers are making their run. Looks like the Flyers are going to get in the playoffs. Even the Phillies, and I've said I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they're going to be exciting to watch at least. I think the Phillies are a lot like the 2016 version of the Eagles. Both teams have rookie manager coach. Doug Peterson's first year was 16. This is Gabe Kapler's first year. You have some exciting young stars. Carson Wentz was a rookie in 2016. Now you've got Reese Hoskins, Jorge Faro, you got J.P. Crawford, Nick Williams. You got those guys who are going to get their biggest taste of major league action after getting kind of a taste of it last year. So the Phillies could be a very exciting ball club. I really. And I don't really think that they're even close to an 86, 87 win team like I hear some folks, but they're still going to be an exciting team to watch. And then after all these seasons are over, you come back and football season starts up again, and a Super Bowl title defense for the Eagles. So I think that's really great for the sports town. It's kind of a resurgence, if you will. I heard that on I was watching Boomer and Gio the other day, and they were talking about that, how it's a rebirth, kind of like what Boston went through and the Red Sox won and the Patriots won. It's kind of a rebirth of a sports town, so to speak. And for the Sixers, as I've said before, it's good to see them relevant in the NBA because they are a team that has a rich, successful history in the NBA, from Wilt Chamberlain, Billy Cunningham, Doug Collins, Julius Erving, Bobby Jones, Mo Cheeks, Allen Iverson, if you want to include him, and now Embiid and Simmons are kind of the next generation of that. So it's going to be very exciting to see what they do in the playoffs. I'm just really hoping they hold on to that 4 seed, even move up to the 3 seed and get home court. Let's move back into baseball. As promised, we'll do the both Western divisions here. I got out in Arizona, we got to see some of the talent in the Western Division. We got to see the Diamondbacks play a couple of games. Boy, did they look bad. Saw Steven Souza hurt himself. He trying to make a diving stop of what turned out to be a Brandon Belt double in right field. We were actually standing right there. Actually, it was right in front of us, and the injury looked awful when it happened. I mean, he went down immediately, and they immediately were calling for someone to come out and help. But I think he strained a pec muscle or something. It wasn't the shoulder or collarbone like we thought it might have been. It was a hell of an effort, but I just couldn't get over there in time. The Diamondbacks, the period we were there, I think scored 1 run in the 2 games we saw him play. They got no hit by Carson Fulmer of the White Sox for 3-4 innings, and then Pudge Rodriguez's kid, Derek Rodriguez, handled him pretty well for 3 innings of the Giants Diamondbacks game, and the Giants offensively looked outstanding, but unfortunately, they're not going to have the services of Jeff Samardzija. And then after I left Arizona, a couple of days later, Madison Bumgarner, his last start of the spring, manages to break his hand, so he's out for a minimum of 6, maybe 8 weeks. So that's tough to lose two big contributors in your rotation. So Chris Stratton and Ty Block will work in the rotation along with Johnny Cueto. So tough break for the Giants. But let's talk about the American League first. The Houston Astros are clearly the class of the American League Western Division. No reason why they can't go right back to the World Series, possibly win it again, to be honest with you. The American League is tough. They've got some – I mentioned this before. They have some super teams. The Indians are really good. You got the Red Sox and Yankees. I still think the Red Sox are going to win the East. I think the Yankees are going to be a wild card. And then you've got Cleveland and Houston as the other 2 division winners. But I think the Astros could actually be better now than they were last year. It's scary just how good this team could be. So, they're a 99 to 100 win team. And then you got the rest of the division. The Seattle Mariners look like an interesting ball club. Cano had a nice year last year. Gene Segura had an incredibly outstanding year with the bat. Not so much with the glove. They got one of the best third basemen you never heard about called Kyle Seager, Corey's brother. Corey's being the Dodgers shortstop, but Kyle Seager's an outstanding third baseman. Zunino might be the best catcher you've never heard of. 20 home run power, solid arm behind the plate. So that's the Mariners, and they're an 80-plus win team. They haven't been to the playoffs in 2001, I think, was the last time they were actually in the playoffs. So they're a contender for the wild card. The Angels, Ohtani's going to make the ball club. Did not have a good spring either with the bat or pitching. We'll see how long you last. Personally, and I heard this a few times out in Arizona as well, as maybe they should let him work out his stuff in AAA. A little less pressure. Give him the opportunity to work some stuff out and then call him up. But he's gonna make the opening day roster as their 4th starter. So that'll will be very interesting to see what he does, and he'll be in the offensive part of the lineup as a DH, except for I believe the day before and day after any of his pitching appearances. The Oakland A's are a very interesting ball club. They've got 2 guys on their corners, and Matt Olson and Matt Chapman. We'll call them the 2 Matts. Both of whom could bang 30-plus home runs on either corner. Both play very good defense. Chapman already at third base is one of the better defensive third basemen in the league. Both came up and had somewhat extensive auditions last year, so they'll be getting their first taste of everyday full-time action. Olson did something like 24 home runs in 60 games last year, so it's going to be very interesting to watch them in terms of their lineup, their power with those 2 guys. And they've got a nice lineup. I mean, Chris Davis is a 40 home run guy every year. He's going to move to the DH spot. They traded for Stephen Piscotty, who was formerly a St. Louis Cardinal. Maxwell's behind the plate, another good young player. Kendall Graveman, I got to watch him pitch against the Dodgers out at Camelback. He was filthy that night. He really pitched. He gave just a couple of hits and didn't walk anybody. Struck out 7 over, I believe it was 5+ innings. He did hit Turner, third baseman for the Dodgers, and knocked him out in the first inning. The pitch broke his wrist. But he looked absolutely outstanding. He's going to head that rotation. They did take a bit of a hit. Jarrell Cotton is going to have Tommy John surgery. Paul Blackburn, who was looked like he was going to be the 4th starter for that ball club, also is injured at this time, but should be back. But Sean Mania will be their 2nd starter as a lefty. Triggs pitched a pretty good game the other day, final tune-up for the spring. He'll be their 5th starter. Blake Trennan is going to be the closer for that ball club. So look out for them. I'm not saying they're going to be a plus 500 team or be a wild card team by any stretch, but they certainly could be better than the 75-76 win team that they're projected to be. And then we had the Texas Rangers, and got to watch them play a couple of times. They looked awful. Doug Fister got his butt handed to him by the White Sox. out of Camelback. It was Tuesday of last week. Then on Wednesday, we saw him at home in Surprise with playing the Cubs, just completely dominated by Yu Darvish. And they had a regular lineup out there that day, too, except for Adrian Beltre. He was the only one that wasn't in the lineup. But they got Joey Gallo at first base, who had 40 home runs last year. Odor and Andrus up the middle. Beltre at third base when he's healthy. And, that's the thing with him now is, how much is he really going to be able to play as he's gotten older. Robinson Chirinos is behind the plate. I believe Juan Centeno, the former Met, is going to be his backup. We saw him hit a home run off Darvish. It was really the only mistake Darvish made that day. Delino DeShields Jr. will be in center field for them. Nomar Mazara, a rookie from a couple of years ago, will be out in right. He didn't look very good either, either offensively or defensively. So we'll see how well he plays. And Shin-Soo Choo now will be the DH after being one of the regular outfielders. I think he's in the third year of a 5-year deal that the Rangers signed to him. But they got Cole Hamels at the top of the rotation. And then really it drops off, and it drops off fast. Matt Moore got his butt handed to him out in Surprise against the Cubs. He lasted about 2 innings. I think he pitched into the third, but he didn't get anybody out, and he looked awful. Mike Minor was a really good reliever for the Royals last year. Now they're going to try him as a starter. We'll see how that works, if he can handle the inning load. After missing the better part of a couple of years, he relieved last year for the Royals and did very well. Pfister and Martin Perez. I think Perez may not actually be ready for the season. I know they re-signed Bartolo Colon, who had a fine spring, a 3 ERA, had just over a 1 WHIP. His only blemish was the start against the Royals where he gave up 3 home runs. But they re-signed him. He'll begin the year, I believe, at AAA, and I think will make the start as the 5th starter, and then we'll see where he goes from there. So the big question mark for the Rangers again is their pitching staff. Outside of Hamels, they're just really don't have anything. They actually could be the last place team in the American League Western Division. So going to the National League, this is a very interesting situation. Also, the Dodgers lost Justin Turner. We don't know when he's going to be back. Forsythe is going to be their second baseman. He'll slide over to play third. Kiki Hernandez can play second base. Oddly enough, they re-signed Chase Utley as well, so he will be able to play some second base for them as well. But Turner's production is going to be very difficult for them to actually replace. I know Matt Kemp had a hell of a spring after he came in with the idea that he might not make the team at all, but he's going to be starting for them. Puig will be in the outfield, so it's they have a very good lineup. We'll see if they can overcome that injury. Austin Barnes is going to be their catcher, although Yasmani Grandal, I'm sure, will get some time there. But we saw Alex Wood pitch, and he pitched outstanding against Graverman the night at Camelback. But they've got Cody Bellinger, who could pop 35, 40-plus home runs playing first base for them, and they're going to be every bit as good as they were a year ago. Kershaw, Wood, you got Kenley Jansen, probably the best closer in baseball, coming in to shut the door on those guys. It'd be interesting to see Chris Taylor's going to be the everyday center fielder this year after kind of being a bit of a utility guy last year. Had a great year. We'll see if he can duplicate that. That's going to be the interesting part there, because he really came out of nowhere in terms of what he was able to do there. But yeah, the Dodgers to me are still the best team in that division. Possibly the best team, maybe the second best team in the National League. The Nationals, for my money, probably the best team in the National League. Then you have the D-backs and the Rockies both surprised everybody last year. I didn't see it with the Diamondbacks last year. I don't see it this year. I mean, they've got Greinke, and anytime you've got a starter like that, you certainly have a chance. Godley had a really good year last year for them. A really good first half. The second half wasn't as great. Robbie Ray pitched well. Patrick Corbin pitched 190 innings, won, I think, 13, 14 games for him last year. His strikeout rate went up a bit. He still gives up a lot of hits, but he managed to overcome that last year. And Taijuan Walker used to be a Mariner pitcher. Every year, somebody, whether it be on Sirius XM or somewhere, you read or hear that this is the year Taijuan Walker breaks out. He had a decent year last year, but we'll see if this is the year that he breaks out. If so, then maybe the Diamondbacks do get back to the playoffs. I just don't see. I do not like their up the middle combination. I'm not a big fan of either Marte or Ahmed. They use Daniel Descalso in some cases. They made a trade for Devin Marrero. of the Red Sox. He's a guy that plays multiple positions. I like David Peralta. A.J. Pollock has an issue staying healthy. But when he is in the lineup, he's a fantastic defensive center fielder. And, again, probably a center fielder not many people have ever heard of. Jake Lamb, tremendous power at third base, left-handed hitter. Glove is not going to make you forget about Brooks Robinson, but still good enough. They got Jared Dyson, a speedster, who played with Kansas City and Seattle, out in the outfield as well. He's going to replace Steven Souza until Souza's ready to come back. Alex Avila, the catcher's a solid guy there. And they've got perennial MVP candidate Paul Goldschmidt at first base, possibly one of the best players in the National League, if not in all of baseball. MVP candidate every season, and we'll see. But, yeah, they're a team that you can see potentially taking that half step backwards out of that wild card spot. The Giants, awful year last year, never got clicking, as they say. And Posey had a great year. Pence was healthy for a change and had an okay year. They made some deals. They've got McCutchen in there now. They've got Evan Longoria they brought back. Brandon Belt is a really good defensive first baseman who hits close to 300. It's a lot of doubles. Joe Panik's one of the best defensive second basemen in baseball, and he got nicked up a bit last year. Brandon Crawford's a Gold Glove shortstop who also hits you 15 to 20 home runs a year. Posey behind the dish, and you got Nick Hundley as his backup. Posey could play first base as well if you want to get Hundley in the lineup and rest Belt. So they're going to have a very interesting ball club. But the pitching there is the issue at this point. Losing Bumgarner and Samardzija for what could be both of them 3 to 4 weeks, and then Bumgarner for an additional 4 weeks after that. That's going to be tough. Now, if they can overcome that, then the Giants could be right in the middle of that wild card mix. The Rockies were the biggest surprise of any team to make the playoffs last year. Mark Reynolds, who was still an unsigned free agent, banged out 30 home runs for him, drove in, I think, 90 runs, or almost 100, actually. They've got the best third baseman in the game in Nolan Arenado. Trevor Story's a power-hitting, pretty good defensive shortstop. Another one of the best defensive second basemen, DJ LeMahieu, who's a perennial 300 hitter at this point, man in second base for him. But their pitching is a bit of an enigma as well. It's amazing that they were able to win the number of games they did last year with some of the numbers that guys like Chatwood, Freeland, Marquez, Senzatella put up for them. And I know it's tough to pitch in that. It's very difficult to pitch in that ballpark. But these guys, just were very underwhelming when you look at their numbers. It seems like they really kind of overcame what they should have been. Charlie Blackmon is an outstanding center fielder, not so much with the glove. Boy, he does hit. Gerardo Parra, I think, is a little beyond his prime. I think you could see Ian Desmond, who's healthy this year. He broke his hand in spring training last year. I think he could end up playing left field, and McMahon could end up playing first base at some point this year, because I think that Gerardo Parra's best years are behind him. Carlos Gonzalez, they just brought him back, and when he's healthy and having a good year, which he did not last year, he's tremendous defensively, has a cannon for an arm, and another guy to hit you 30 to 35 home runs. They got Wade Davis to be their closer, which is a great move on their part. What kept them in a lot of games last year was Greg Holland was untouchable for the first part of the year. Then they got Neshek at the trade deadline from the Phillies, and he pitched great down the stretch as well. So, you have those two teams there. In the Diamondbacks and the Rockies making the playoffs last year. But I don't see the Rockies doing it this year. I think that they take a step backwards as well, and that opens the door for some other teams. The Padres are a team that's getting better. They've got some good young players on that ball club, some good pitchers. We got to see one of their pitchers throw in out in Arizona, Lamet, and he looked good pitching against the Reds. He looked very good, actually. Dinelson Lamet. He'll be in their rotation this year. They got Brian Mitchell from the Yankees. He's a guy that really just always had some bad luck. He either would get hurt or just because he had options, they'd keep sending him up and down. He relieved for the Yankees last year, made a few starts the year before. He's penciled in the rotation this year, so this is going to be his first opportunity to really get some innings as a starter. Clayton Richards, 35 years old. I don't know what he's got left. He pitched a lot of innings last year, and there were a lot of bad innings, to be honest with you. They lost Julius Chacin, who pitched a bunch of innings for them. Luis Perdomo is one starter they've got. Tyson Ross is also in the back end of that rotation. Brad Hand, who had a hell of a year last year, is going to be their closer. But they've got one of the best center fielders that you've never heard of, and Manuel Margot. Watching him last year, he's a defensive highlight reel. He really is, and he's going to learn how to hit. and he's just going to keep getting better and better and better. Will Myers is playing first base the last couple of years. He gets put back in the outfield, which is really kind of more of his natural position. He signed Eric Hosmer to a big deal, and Hosmer's going to add a lot of RBIs, a lot of doubles to that lineup. Chase Headley comes back from the Yankees. Headley had a nice bounce-back year for the Yanks last year, so he'll be in that lineup as well. You've got Austin Hedges, who caught last year. Again, a power-hitting catcher, decent arm, and we'll see what he can do over the course of a full season this year. Freddie Galvis comes over from the Phillies to play shortstop. He's a Gold Glove caliber shortstop. He'll play every game, and he'll hit a little bit. It'll be surprising with his power, but he's there primarily. He's a defensive whiz at shortstop. But the Padres are still more than likely the last-place team in this division unless they overtake the Rockies. So that's what we're looking at there. But in a recap here, going back to the American League West for a moment, the Astros clearly are the best team there. They really are. They're going to win that division by 10, 15 games easily. So that's how that's going to work out. But then the next couple teams, I think you could see the Seattle Mariners coming in the second place there and maybe securing the second wild card spot. It really depends on what the Twins do. The Twins came out of nowhere last year after a dreadful season 2 years ago. So that although I think the Twins could take a step back, you have to like what they've done in the moves they've made. So if a guy like Barrios really has found himself, Irvin Santana, they got Oda Rosie in trade and signed Lynn. They've got a nice rotation, which they did not have last year. So if their offense takes a step backwards, maybe their pitching actually takes a step up, and we'll see what happens. The White Sox, I think, are going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to score runs, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop anybody from scoring runs. Their pitching is just simply not that good. James Shields is their opening day starter. Watch out for Lucas Giolito. He looked outstanding the game we saw him pitch out in Arizona, and he's one of the guys that came over for Eaton last year from the Nats. He was a top prospect a few years back, and I know he's lost a little bit of velocity, but he looked great as the start we saw him pitching out in Arizona. The Royals and Tigers flip a coin, quite honestly, in terms of who's going to finish last or second to last in that division. But we're looking at the Twins there for the wild card. And going back to the West, the Angels are the third place team more than likely, unless Oakland overperforms a little bit, which they could with that offense. And we'll see what Graverman does at the top of their rotation. The National League West is owned by the Dodgers, and again, they're going to be another anywhere from 97 to 100 win team, and they're going to win that division by at least 10 games. I don't see Arizona doing any better than they did last year. They're not going to be, they're going to be missing Souza, and he was the guy who was supposed to replace Martinez's production as Martinez went off to Boston, and he's hurt, and he's going to be out for a bit. The Giants certainly could have a big bounce back year because they've got the ingredients for it. But again, now they're going to be relying on some young pitchers, Stratton and Block, to try and pick up for Bumgarner and Samardzija. And it puts a lot of pressure on Cueto too, actually. Mark Melancon didn't have a very good season last year. They're counting on him to be their closer. They still got Hunter Strickland. Osich is another pretty good reliever they've got on that ball club. But their everyday lineup looks good. It really does. And if they're healthy, Belt, Panic, Crawford, Longoria, Posey behind the plate, Pence on a corner. You've got McCutcheon on another corner, Jackson in center. They really could be a solid ball club that could win, I would say, mid to high 80s. I'll be honest with you. They're my pick to. They're actually one of my picks to be in the wild card hunt. Maybe actually secure a wild card along with the Cardinals, and then the best of the rest, really, the Mets. I think the Mets are a better bet than the Phillies right now. Better pitching, better known. Let's just say better known quantity in terms of pitching. Their top two is better than any other top two next to the Nationals. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I like the Mets in terms of being a potential. And again, their question mark is health. The Phillies' question marks are how are the young players going to be. You don't know how their new manager is going to react either, nor do you with the Mets. But I believe that the Mets are the better team. The Cardinals, to me, are would be the other wild card. So I'm looking at the Cardinals and Giants as being the wild cards in the National League. Your division winners are the Nationals, the Cubs, and the Dodgers. No brainer there. American League, I like the Red Sox in the East, the Indians in the Central, the Astros in the West, and I'll tell you that the Yankees will be the one wild card, and I want to go with Minnesota as the second wild card. after getting to see some of the other teams play and everything, that's what I think is going to happen. You're going to have a rematch of last year's wild card in the American League. That's exactly what I see. So that's how that all shapes up. So hey, everybody, enjoy opening day. Opening day is this week. I'm going to enjoy seeing Noah Syndergaard take on Martinez up in New York with the Mets and Cardinals on opening day. That's going to be an outstanding matchup. Seeing Thor pitch at home, the fans are going to be all lathered up and ready to go for opening day. A lot of excitement up there, as it should be. Opening day should always be exciting, no matter what team you root for. So whoever you're rooting for out there, I hope that they win for you on opening day. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll certainly do this again next week. And before we go, I know I was out in Arizona. I know I posted some stuff both on Facebook as well as with my articles with All Pro Nation and the Philly sports blogs. But while I was in surprise for the Cubs-Rangers game, I ran into former Phillies and Cubs outfielder Bobby Dernier. Bobby D played here for Philadelphia. He was a rookie in '82, played on the '82 and '83 team. The team that went to the World Series. Played for the Cubs in '84 and won a Gold Glove that year. So we were able to talk to him for a little bit. And when we go out, I'll play the message that he recorded for the fans back in Philadelphia who certainly remember him. So, again, we'll do this again next week. Follow me on Twitter. The handle is @BigGreek24. Email address is victorlogo13@gmail.com. Now the Facebook page, which is the Sports Greek. We're on the APN Radio Network. We're also contributing to allpronation.com and phillysportsblogs.com. So we'll play the Bobby Dernier message for you on our way out. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy opening day. I'm here with former Philly Bobby Dernier out here in Surprise, Arizona, and I thought he might want to say hi to the fans back home.
Big optimism in Philly this year. You got Jake, former Cub, and, keep everybody healthy. You guys have a great year. And by the way, world champs, those Eagles, congratulations again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dernier.